Is it time to panic about Utah's quarterback situation? We're talking about it on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. My name is JT Wistcill, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. On today's show, we are sponsored by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions may apply. On today's show, we're going to be previewing the quarterback room and the Utah tight end room overall. And in doing so, we're going to talk about obviously the big injuries that are there. And the biggest one to this Utah football team in general is the injury that Cam Rising is recovering from currently. And the latest with Cam's thing is he has still not been cleared and is still a limited participant. So the question, is it time to panic about the Utah quarterback situation? I don't think it's time to panic. If you want to be worried about Cam not playing against Florida, I think that's absolutely fair. I think that's been fair for a while, and I am definitely starting to get more concerned about the odds of him missing the game based on the reports we continue to hear, right? Obviously, you'd love for him to be full go, be cleared, and everything like that. So, yes, I am getting definitely a little more concerned with that Cam is going to miss the game as this continues to drag on and go into this, as we are now basically 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks away from the Florida game. So this is where it's going to be really interesting to see what the timeline of it ends up being like. I definitely still think there's a chance that Cam plays against Florida. That may seem crazy, and the odds, like I said, the odds would definitely not favor Cam playing against Florida based on everything we've heard. But this is college football. You never know how, and also just with the recovery and everything like that, we don't know like where it's at in the pace. We just know what's been reported in general, but we've seen the videos of Cam throwing overall. I do still think there's a chance he's going to play. This could be an example of Kyle Whittingham, just kind of keeping something inside. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying it also could be like Cam could be doing a little better than maybe we know of. Maybe he is a little participating in a little bit more of practice. That's where all this stuff is hard, because this is all shrouded in secrecy, because we don't get to, as media members, you don't get to go to the practice in general anyway. So we don't actually get to see what Cam is or is not doing at practice overall. So with Cam, he's like I said, if you had to do the odds right now, we probably won't see Cam against Florida, but I definitely still think there's a chance. And just because it's not more likely doesn't mean, like I said, part of me still, like if I had to predict, like part of me still wants to say Cam Rising, even though the odds would not favor that prediction right now. So I don't think it's time to panic about the situation. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in like 30 seconds. But I just want to say the other part about this, I think that's making people concerned, is obviously what's going on with Brandon Rhodes, right? Who got hurt in the scrimmage. He's going to miss. He's not a season ender. We did hear Andy Ludwig clarify that. But he's going to miss the first game, it sounds like. So it's coming down to Bryson and Nate. And even if Cam does miss the first game, I'm not panicking about that situation, because the Florida Gators have the potential to be a good football team this year. There's a reason they're not in the top 25. They have a lot of question marks, a lot of turnover in general, just a lot of things that they're still trying to figure out and get good with. And still a roster that is not one of the most talented in college football in general, in terms of, this is where I get clipped. And then everyone goes like, JT said their roster's not talented, even though we have all these recruits. What I mean by talent is a talented college football roster in terms of what they've produced at the collegiate level. That's what I'm talking about when I say talent. A roster like Utah's, where you have all these guys who have accomplished a lot in college football. Florida's roster is not loaded with those types of players. And to me, because I think Utah does have a better roster in that standpoint, with more talented players on it right now, not players with a higher ceiling than some of those high Florida recruits, but players that are more talented college football players right now, players that I would rather have on. I'd rather have this group of Utah players and the Florida group of Utah players. I think you could say that about a lot of the different position groups that the Gators have overall. And I'm sure Florida fans will have a lot of fun with that comment I just made right there. But I feel good about this overall Utah team. And that's why I think they can win with a backup quarterback. And as to who I think that backup quarterback will be, well, thankfully, we heard some, or another, and this is another reason too that no one should be panicking right now, is that we've heard really good reports. This all comes from Josh Furlong at Utah Media Availability last week. He talked about Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson. He said they've both gotten considerably better at almost every aspect of quarterback play. Have they arrived yet? Absolutely not. But this is a much improved position group in the last week as anyone in football. That's what you'd like to hear and be encouraged about in fall camp, especially for guys like Nate Johnson, right, that are still young, that are still growing. and still doing just still developing as a college football quarterback in general. He's only a freshman last year, didn't get a lot of ton of just much of any game experience outside of just running the football. I don't think I'm not sure if he ever did a traditional drop back. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong there. I just know the one time that he did throw a pass, it was a nice design play to Logan Kendall, which was open, but I'm not sure if he's ever in a live game gone through reads and all of that kind of stuff. And like I said, he might have. I know he's done it in the spring game, but obviously that's a scrimmage. It's a lot different when you're doing a real college football game. But moving on from there, another comment he made is that, like I said, they've gotten considerably better. And another reason to not panic about this whole situation, if you're a Utah fan, is that they've been planning for this. Ludwig said the team had been, and this comes from Josh Furlong, that the team has been game planning for a backup quarterback since the spring. So they wouldn't be unprepared and feel like they don't have a plan if something did happen with Cam and he's not available. So we still don't know the situation with Cam's health overall. But yeah, I think the favorite to start week one right now should be Bryson Barnes based on everything we're hearing. I just think the experience factor is a big one, right? I think as high as I've been on Nate Johnson, I think Nate Johnson still has an incredibly bright future overall. I think he'll definitely have a chance to win this job in 24 and could see playing time. There's a chance we could see him against Florida, right? I think in a lot of those packages and things, I would be surprised if he beat out Bryson Barnes just based on what we're hearing. Bryson has experience against college defenses at the highest level. He's played against them, been scrimmaging in Utah's system just for a long time, practicing it at the game experience, just experience in general. He has that over Nate. I expect Bryson to start if Cam is not available. And I think Utah once again can win with Bryson. Bryson's not going to put the team on his back. Utah's really very rarely needed a quarterback to put the team on his back overall. Look back at 21 Cam, right? Cam was very good for Utah that season, but we were talking about Devin Lloyd and all the things Brant Kuithe was doing too. Cam was a part of that team, but once again, Devin Lloyd was named Pac-12 player of the game overall. And yes, Cam won the 23 Pac-12 player of the game. Cam was very good, but last I checked, the offensive line was also very good. And I'm not trying to diminish Cam. I'm just saying this Utah football team has always won with a team. They've never won because of individuals, except for the USC game, I would say. And yes, the individual defense still made some plays, all of that. But that Cam and Dalton, that game were the reason Utah won that game overall. But just look at the totality of Utah football and their success. They win as a team. It's not the reason USC won the Heisman so much is because every week Caleb Williams had to go out and score 50 points in order for his team to win. Utah very rarely had to do that last year. Even in the Pac-12 championship game, the offense went off. The defense was sensational and really held Caleb Williams in check. So Utah can absolutely win with a guy like Bryson Barnes, who I would say is more of a game manager, right? Can hit some teammates if he's open, but he's not running around, buying time in the pocket, escaping pressure, going to make guys miss in general. That's not Bryson Barnes. But if the offensive line is executing, if receivers get open, if the run game is going, Bryson Barnes can deliver. And he's going to miss some throws, probably make a mistake or two, but you can absolutely win with Bryson Barnes out there. And I do hope, I'll say this too, if Bryson starts, I still, which we expect to happen if Cam doesn't play, get Nate Johnson on the field out there. Let him run the ball multiple times. Just the threat he offers overall. The defense will have to respect that. And he's a special athlete. So I do want to see Nate Johnson involved in this game plan. Even if Cam Rising plays, I just want to see Nate Johnson on the field. And it sounds like the coaching staff knows they need to do that as well, just because he's so good running the football with his legs too. And because of the threat he provides running, I think you could catch the Gators defense potentially sleeping as well and let him you get a receiver break open, something like that, and then Nate could throw it a little bit too. So just lots of problems that he presents, but it is not time to panic about the Utah quarterback situation, even if Cam doesn't play, because you have a backup quarterback who's won a college football game, went to Washington State and won a game, and you also got one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the Pac-12 who is a backup, I would say, overall, and a guy, Nate Johnson, who is just has electric speed. So I do not think it's time to panic. I still think Utah can beat Florida without Cam Rising, and it's still going to be interesting to see because, like I said, odds Cam not playing, but I'm not going to say, oh, he's out until we actually see Bryson Barnes jogging onto the field because it's Cam Rising. He's tough. And I know he wants to get out there versus Florida. So I definitely think there's still a chance he'll play versus Florida. But we'll see. Utah will be in good hands with Bryson Barnes if he's not. But Cam is going to come back at some point, and we are going to talk about what this Utah offense will look like with Cam Rising and also just about the future of the Utah quarterback situation in a moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about our friends at LinkedIn Talent Solutions. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes situation and wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You guys can go over and add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. They have simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. There are tons of qualified candidates for you guys out there, so make sure you guys head over to LinkedIn Talent Solutions and check all of them out, because LinkedIn Jobs, they help you find those qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So just go over, post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Alrighty, coming back into this one, let's talk about the present and future of the Utah quarterback room. So I said that that right now it seems likely that Bryson Barnes will start against Florida, and we can talk about Bryson more in a second. But at some point, and I expect it to be sometime in September, if he does miss the season opener, him being Cam Rising, Cam Rising is going to come back, and I think with the talent around him, his experience in the system, having faced everything you can face in college football, I still think he's set up to have a phenomenal year. And especially by the time I'm very curious to see, like, based on the timeline of Cam's health and recovery, if he'll ever be 100% this season in terms of, let's say he's 90 and comes back against Florida and then, or against a team, then gets banged up a little bit and then goes to like 80. Like, I wonder if we'll ever see 100% Cam Rising. But I still think, like, especially in November and even in like October, I think we could see Cam play some of the best games he's ever played as a Ute. Just, I don't know if we'll see a performance like we saw at USC last year, because just that's one of the best performances we saw from a college quarterback last year. And it's just hard to have those moments over and over and over again. That's Heisman type stuff. But I do think Cam is capable of more special performances. And I think some of his best games he's ever played as a Utah quarterback will come in 2023. I think Cam is accuracy and just familiarity with the system, his guys, he's going to be dialed in even more. I think, look, he's not going to have the running element as much to his game this year, but I think he's going to have an even better pocket presence, which he's already had. He's already really good at that last year. This is Cam Rising. This is one of the, ESPN did their top 100 college football players. This is one of the 30 best players in college football. And I don't think it's a hot take at all. I think if Cam was healthy, I can make a strong argument he's in the top 20 to 15 and maybe even the top 10. I have not looked at like the full list. Like, that's just me off the top of my head being like, man, that's the guy's won back-to-back Pac-12 championships. I don't know how many returners in college football can say they've done something like that or just have the resume that Cam Rising does. So, but either way, I think Cam is set up to have a good year. I think his connection with the receivers is strong. I think he provides accuracy at every field level, just the toughness to be able to tuck it and run it. Even if he's never 100%, he will still do that in key situations, I believe. Just the pocket presence, as I mentioned, the ability to throw on the move as well. And I do think Cam could have just an incredible year in this offense with the talented receivers that are supporting and surrounding him as well. And speaking of those receivers as well, Cole Bagley tweeted this out. It was a comment from Ludwig made in the media availability where he said, and that's Cole Bagley of Rivals, he said both the transfer receivers had a nice showing last night in the scrimmage, as Ludwig talked about the scrimmage, counting on those guys to be key contributors. Talk about a Devon Vele, who will of course be the #1 receiver, and great development out of Money Park's Mikey Matthews, who was here in the spring. So very productive this fall. So I very much so think this could be the best receiving core that Cam Rising has ever had with his time at the Utes. And in fact, it should be, just looking at it on paper, should be the best. I don't know if it'll ever be if it will be the overall best group of pass catchers, because you don't get the combination of Dalton Kincaid and Brant Kuithe together, but an overall really well-rounded and talented receiving core could be a big boost for this team. And I do think Cam is going to have a really good year, and Utah's going to win some big games, even if they suffer some losses earlier in the season without him. I do think that Cam is going to help this team accomplish incredible things. And I think Cam's a guy. I mean, he's just one of like the dudes in college football that you would want in a close game. He's got ice in veins. You know, he can drive down the field and score a touchdown. Did he do it every time last year? No, he had games like the Oregon game. Every quarterback has not great games. Not every quarterback comes up in every big situation. Caleb Williams fell short a few times last year. Bo Nix fell short a few times last year still. And that's even games like you'd look and like, oh, they played really well overall. I could look back and say that about Cam's Florida game last year. I thought Cam overall played a pretty good game, but then turns it over on the one, right? Like, just those are things that happen. But I can also look at a game like a USC, money on the table, got to drive down the field, get your team in position to win. And he does it not just scoring a touchdown, but then powers in the 2-point conversion. Just incredible stuff. And it's Cam Rising plays. It's why he's become such a legend for Utah football fans. It's why he's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. A guy I think is a top 10 quarterback in college football, because he's built for the moments. I know he'll deliver. I know he'll step up. And Utah is lucky that he's going to be back at least some point this season, hopefully for the Florida season opener. But we shall see overall. And then after that, then talk about just the future of the Utah quarterback position at all. I think the first guy you can mention, present/future, is Bryson Barnes that we talked about in the last one, right? I've said a lot of what I feel about Bryson Barnes. I think he's a very capable backup. Utah can win games without him, but I don't think he is. I think the guys like a Nate Johnson, like a Brandon Rose, like an Isaac Wilson when he's up here next year, I think they all have a higher ceiling. And I would be surprised if Brandon Rose was this team's starter next year, but you never know how things going to play out. But I very much like Bryson as a backup. I think he's a really strong backup who can win you games, but I do understand why Utah would, like I said, I don't think he's going to win the job next year because I think those other guys are more talented than him overall. But I give Bryson a lot of credit. And I'm a huge fan for everything he's done for this team because he's come up in some huge situations too, just in general. But now really look into the future because, as I said, Bryson, I just expect him to be the backup overall. When you're talking about first Brandon Rose, I thought he showed great just in the spring. He was the breakout star, right? The accuracy he showed and made a great impression overall. Hasn't had as strong of a fall camp before the injury, it sounded like, but I definitely think he'll have a chance at the starting job. He's a really talented quarterback who doesn't have a lot of experience, so this is where it always gets murky. But just the potential and the rave reviews he's earned in practice, that leaves me really encouraged. Then you get a guy in Nate Johnson as well, who's just one of the best athletes on this team in general. And we also know has the potential to be a dynamic quarterback. Made some nice throws in the spring game. I think he had an interception or two as well. So just still growing and developing, though. Only a sophomore with this Utah football team this coming season. And he did redshirt last year. So once again, good opportunity for him to gain that valuable experience overall. And I definitely think Nate, just because of how what he's able to do as a running quarterback, I think he's a guy who could buy time if needed. He's a guy who can scramble. You can construct a very good offense around Nate Johnson's skills. And I do think the arm and the accuracy, all that stuff that we've heard that he's still working on improving. He's even made strides in the more reps he's gotten. I think that's going to continue to develop too. So I think that he's going to have a shot at the starting job next year. And it's really hard to start as a true freshman for Kyle Whittingham, but man, turn on Isaac Wilson against Bishop Gorman last week. Watch him against Granger. I genuinely think he's going to have a shot at the job. Is he going to win it? I'm not the favorite, like I said with the other stuff, but I'm not going to count him out of the race. I mean, he's just a special talent quarterback too. Look at what he can do with his legs, and he is the most talented. Higher ceiling wise. Him and Nate are close in that regard, but man, just some of the throws that Isaac's made as well in general. I'm really enamored with his skill set. I think there's a lot of things he could do in this Utah offense that would make it special. When you're talking about the off-platform throws, the ability to use his legs, as I talked about, just in general as well too, and really strong arm accuracy, good pocket presence, pretty good footwork too. And he's already cut down on the last year at 16 turnovers. I think through 2 games. I don't know if he's had one yet. He's not going to turn the ball over 16 times this year. He's a really talented quarterback who's maximized the Chargers offense at the high school level to what it can be. And I think working with Andy Ludwig, the two of them could have a lot of success together too. So those are the 3 main guys in the quarterback battle that stand out to me for next year. With, like I said, Bryson maybe getting, just because of his familiarity, maybe he'll have a chance in it as well. And we'll see how all that plays out. But the Utah quarterback position is in a really good spot to me. It's some of the most talented. There's a lot of young talent in this room, arguably as good as it's ever been in terms of young talent wise. So very optimistic about the future that each of those guys can win. And whether it's Nate, Isaac, or Brandon Rose next year, I feel good about all of those guys having learned it. And I think the last thing I will say, just because I've been saying a lot of just profusively just praising those guys in general and like kind of discounting Brandon Rose or Bryson Barnes for next year. I just want to remind people, like, this is me projecting a year from now, right? So a year when Nate has another year of experience under his belt, a year when Brandon Rose has more time to learn, watch, and grow and develop, and Isaac Wilson joins the team as well. Bryson Barnes is Bryson Barnes. I think he's what he is, right? I just don't think there's a lot of room for him to be a ton better over. I don't think he's going to come out there and really surprise us, but he is better than those guys right now from what we've heard, just because of his familiarity with the system and all those type of things. And that's why right now, because of his familiarity, because of his experience, because of what we've seen, I believe he's the best guy. Versus in the future, once those guys get those more experience, those things that I'm projecting them to get, just more familiarity with the system, that's where I think that they will be able to come in and have a really good opportunity to start for this Utah football team, all 3 of them in general. So that's going to be something that's interesting to monitor and watch overall. Just like it's going to be interesting to monitor and watch the Utah tight end position, because there's some stuff going on with Brant Kuithe right now. He's not 100% cleared either. We'll be discussing that in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you guys about our friends at UCCU. Learn and Earn, the UCCU mobile banking app that pays your entire family to learn about money. Kids look to parents to become more financially literate. Parents don't always know the answers. Learn and Earn breaks down the financial topics into fun, bite-sized, and educational games like quizzes and trivia. Every time a family member completes a topic, they earn a point that occurs and can be redeemed for gift cards to stores like Amazon, Apple, Sephora, Walmart, Nike, and even more. There is an age-appropriate content for a game for every member of the family who can compete against each other and track their progress on leaderboards. Learn and Earn is inside the UCCU mobile banking app. So play anytime, anywhere. The more you play, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more you earn. Learn and Earn, part of UCCU's award-winning Be Money Smart Youth Banking Program, helping kids, teens, and parents have fun while becoming more financially literate together. UCCU, love where you bank. All righty, to close this one out today, let's talk some tight ends. First, we'll start with the news that Brant Kuithe has not quite been cleared yet overall. I believe the latest, as Josh Furlong said, is Brant Kuithe is farther along than Rising, but not an active full participant. So will Kuithe play against Florida? Him, I feel even better about than Cam playing, but definitely still a question they might not. I'd be shocked. I'll say this: if Brant doesn't play in the Baylor game, is the one I'd be really shocked. It definitely sounds like, just based on where Cam's at in his recovery, he might miss the Baylor game. Brant sounds closer, so I definitely think we're going to see Brant against Baylor, but I guess there's a chance we might not see him against Florida. But either way, let's talk about Brant Kuithe, right? He's in for an unreal year. The question I posed will I didn't even answer the one. Will Cam Rising have his best year in 23? 22 overall might end up being his best. I don't know. I think he's definitely got a chance to have in 23. So I'll maybe go, yeah, I think there's a chance that Cam could play some of his best ball overall in 23. The health makes me nervous about that, but I think there's a chance Cam could have his best year. And to me, Kuithe, because of the health, I think he's going to come second in yards. I do think Brock Bowers of Georgia will end up beating him out in that category, but I definitely think Cam has a shot. Brant has a shot to have a great year. I think Brant's record with Utah in terms of yards is only 600 yards. I think he's easily going to go over. I think he'll go over 800 yards this year. I think that's the type of year Brant's going to have. When you look at what he showed in his growth as a route runner last year, and he was always a good route runner, but last year against Florida was really special. The catch radius, the speed, overall, the ability to get in and out of his breaks. I think Brant Kuithe's in for a big year. We know he's a strong blocker too. I expect him to lead this team in receiving yards. Brant Kuithe is just one of the tight ends in college football when it comes to creating separation, making plays for his team, the toughness, the yards after the catch. I'm a big Brant Kuithe fan, and I think he's going to have a huge year. And he's not going to be the only Utah tight end, right? Thomas Yasmin is going to have even more electric and big plays. He averaged 23 yards a catch last year. When you look at the big play against Colorado, the big play against Arizona State, the big play against USC in the Pac-12 championship game. There are so many moments for Thomas Yasmin. I think we'll see more consistency from him overall this coming year. And that really excites me because I think he's absolutely going to ball out with this offense. I think he's going to finish, if I had to guess, I think he's going to finish third or fourth in receiving yards. Micah Pittman, Money Parks, Thomas Yasmin, they're all kind of fighting for that third spot because I do believe Brant Kuithe will be one and then Devon Vele will be two. But I think Thomas's athleticism, I think he's going to even be a better blocker this year just because of how strong he is overall and just getting, once again, just another year of experience under his belt like he got last year, adding more strength just in the year in college football. I think that'll be a big boost for him in general. And Thomas is the catch radius is there. We know the athleticism is there after the hurdle we saw last year against Colorado and just throwing guys in the open field like he did against USC. So I definitely think that Thomas is in for a big season with this Utah football team because a lot of defenses are going to be so worried about Brant and then Devon as well. They're going to leave Thomas open, and we know what that can do when he's open and has space in front of him. So expect a big year out of Thomas Yasmin. And the other guy, when we're talking about just the current Utah tight end, and this kind of segues into the future as well, I do think it's Landon King. Landon King's a guy who is an exceptional athlete. When you are talking about a Landon King in general, you're talking about a guy who overall is 6'5", 225, and just a sophomore this coming season. And he's a guy who made some plays in the Auburn Bowl or against Auburn in the Iron Bowl a couple of years ago in overtime. He caught a pass from, I believe it was Mac Jones, might have been some other Alabama quarterback, but like that's just how long that King has been in college. And because of the COVID year and some of the other stuff, he does have like 3 years of eligibility left. So I expect him to make some grabs this year, just his athletic profile. I do think he'll be able to make some plays with that speed. I just think in the tight end, it's going to be a mismatch for some of the guys that are trying to cover him overall and just the explosiveness he could provide from that position. I expect him to have a good year, finish third in the tight end room in receiving. Chance he could beat out Yasmin, I think, in terms of receiving yards, but I do expect Yasmin to beat him there. And then next year, I think he's the guy in this tight end room. I really do think this is Landon King's room overall in terms of he'll be the leader in it, just because adding more strength, more experience in the system. We've always seen guys, the longer they're in this system, get better in general. And I think that'll be the case with Landon King overall. I think he's going to have a big 2024 and still make some nice plays in 23. I think he's a guy who's going to have somewhere in between like 200 to 400 yards, though, maybe even 200 to 500, somewhere in that range. But just a guy capable of making plays. And if something unfortunate happens and there's injuries in the tight end room, I feel confident in King's ability to step up overall. Some of the tight ends that I think will play a role in this team, not just this year, but maybe in the future as well. is another guy in general that I think could do some things. Is Dolan Bentley, who comes in, transfers in from Snow College. We heard some good things about him in camp overall. Noah Benny is another guy who's making grabs in spring ball. CJ Jacobson, just a freshman this year, but a year of experience. When you talk about those three and you pair them with King, this tight end room is going to continue. Utah's been the place for tight ends as of recent years, right? With what Brant has done and what Dalton just did. I think that's going to continue with these guys. I think a lot of high profile recruits, tight end wise, are going to want to continue to join this program as well. So even looking down the long-term future of that, I have a lot of confidence that it's going to be good. And yeah, I really believe in this group. I think Fred Whittingham Jr. is the best tight end coach in the nation. And I think he's going to continue bringing talented guys to work with that are going to want to work with him. And they're just going to thrive in this system because the tight ends that Utah continues to bring in, they do a great job creating that separation, making plays after the catch, shifty in the open field, and earn the quarterback's trust. And I think all of those guys, when you're talking about Bentley, Jacobson, and then as well as Benny, I think they're all capable of doing that. And they're all really strong blockers too. You know, you have to do that to play in this Utah system. And I think they're all capable of doing that. So very excited about the present and future of the Utah tight end room overall. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. So that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We appreciate you for joining us. Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think about of the YouTube comments, or as well as on Apple Podcasts? You guys can give a review, rate and review 5 stars. All of that greatly appreciated. But just comment. You can comment under my social media posts as well. What do you guys think about the quarterback situation? Do you think it's going to be Bryson? Do you still think Cam is going to be able to make it out there and end up starting? Is Brant Kuithe going to play early? Which tight end are you most excited to see? All those things I would love to hear. And we'll be back with you on tomorrow's show as we're going to be talking about Utah going to the Big 12. I know that's been big news for a while now, but I got a special little wrinkle on it and twist we're going to be talking about on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Utes, because it's our last time to look ahead to the future in terms of 2024 before we really lock in fully on 23, because the season is almost here. Literally, this was the final weekend without college football of the entire year itself. Exciting stuff. And as it inches closer and closer to the Florida game, make sure you guys stay with us here at Locked On Utes, because we are going to continue to talk about all things Utah football. And we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great Monday.